Hello guys, and today our Russian geography lesson will be specifically painful for the Putin's regime, and all because Ukrainian drones have reached close to St. Petersburg, to the largest Russian seaport in Ust-Luga, the one that the Kremlin right now uses to try and avoid sanctions, but also to let its evil shadow fleet into the waters. And also, St. Petersburg itself is very symbolic for Putin. That is the city from which he began his political career. And whenever explosions are heard in St. Petersburg or Moscow, it becomes more and more difficult for Putin and co. to explain that everything goes according to the plan. So let's discuss why this visit of Ukrainian drones deep inside the Russian Federation to Ust-Luga is so important, and why I think similar geography lessons will repeat quite often in 2025. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia and also protect yourself against hybrid warfare, subscribe. We discuss all of that on the channel. This night was loud in Russia as the Ukrainian drones were visiting legitimate military objects in 5 Russian regions. Why? Because years ago, Russians supported Putin's idea to attack Ukraine and decided they want war. So now they have it in many Russian regions. And tonight, we were working on the military objects traditionally in Belgorod, in Bryansk, in Smolensk, in Pskov, but also in Leningrad. I cannot believe, but they still have a region in Russia, one of the biggest, one of the richest, named after the communist dictator Lenin, Leningrad. So those who think that Russia has nothing to do with communism actually make a great mistake, because like half of big and important Russian cities, Russian regions are named under these bloody tyrants, like Leningrad. In center of Leningrad, we have St. Petersburg, one of the richest and biggest Russian cities, and very dear for the dark heart, if he has one, of Putin, because his political career began there. And St. Petersburg is very important for shaping the public opinion. You might have noticed that Putin, if he is afraid of any people in Russia, these are from Moscow and St. Petersburg. So whenever they have to close airports and people hear air raid alerts and explosions in these cities, Putin is super nervous. And this happened today, because Ukrainian drones paid a visit to a large commercial port very close to St. Petersburg in Ust-Luga. And Russians had to close the work of the airport in St. Petersburg, Pulkovo. You know, they are really good at hiding truths, but when they have to close airports and lots of air connections are postponed, people have to wait for their flights, internal Russian flights, they definitely inform each other, and then it's impossible to hide the information from the population. So I'm sure it was all over the Russian internet, and perhaps some of them felt quite demotivated, as Ukrainian drones kept working in that port. You know, I had to Google a lot to learn more about this big seaport and why have Ukrainian drones chose it. And it turns out to be super important both for Russian military and for Russian economy. It started operating in 2001, and Putin was already the president of Russia. Can you imagine that? Subscribe to witness the fall of Putin's regime and discuss all of that online together. I'm sure that will be a wonderful day. And please share these videos on your social media platforms to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine and all freedom-loving nations. So since 2001, this port was growing bigger and bigger, and right now it is the main logistics hub for Russian not just military, but also for various companies that try to avoid sanctions. Unfortunately, it still happens. There are countries in Europe, in North America, in Australia, in Africa that get something from Russia, and Russia is looking for ways to deliver that. And this Ust-Luga port is often used for that, to help Russian companies avoid sanctioned travel, let's say, to the Baltics, and then pretend that they are a company not from Russia. But what makes it more interesting and more important for the work of Ukrainian drones, Ust-Luga is the main port that Russia right now uses for its shadow fleet. And I consider shadow fleet one of the greatest evils that Russia exports into the world. Because first of all, it humiliates, it mocks sanctions and world order, and it illustrates whatever you want, we will keep doing our Russian dirty business. And why dirty? Because they use outdated, non-registered tankers that often get destroyed in the waters because they are too old. They were actually out of work, and they are a great danger for water, for pollution, and that is another threat that Russia imposes on the world. So undermines international laws, then destroys nature, then illustrates other criminals like pirates and various authoritarian regimes, that if you consider yourself a bully, if you are violent, you can do whatever you want. And personally, I believe it's more comfortable to live in the world where laws and rules decide, not violence. Because I cannot even say power. It's not power, it's violence and madness, what Russia illustrates right now. And of course, this Ust-Luga port was also a way to pretend that everything is okay. Russia is not fully isolated, and some cargo ships and other connections actually were open to the Baltic once again, and then furthermore. But I'm sure those people who don't like Russian ships cutting your cables underwater, those who don't want rotten old tankers close to their shores and the dangers that they bring with that, are satisfied that Ukrainian drones have visited this Ust-Luga port. And I'm sure such visits will continue because, first of all, they paralyze Russian logistics hub, Russian economy, and Russian disrespect to the world. Second, they send very important messages to the population of Russia that not everything goes according to the plan. And believe me, news about explosions and closed airports in St. Petersburg are all over the Russian media, in contrast to what's happening in Kursk-Belgorod. Unfortunately, the Kremlin has already illustrated that they don't treat all of its people equally. And of course, this is super problematic for Putin and his criminal gang, because they try to pretend they are still in control of everything. But I'm sure even those oligarchs around the Kremlin goblin realize he is losing power and he is getting weaker with each day. I'm not mentioning Syria. I'm not mentioning internal problems. I'm just saying about explosions in Putin's favorite capital of St. Petersburg, because for him this is the city from which the career started. And maybe it will be one of the reasons for the end of his career. Join me on various social media platforms. I share different content there. You can find me on Instagram, in Blue Sky, on X, and Threads. All the links that you need are in the description of this video, and we have a beautiful Discord community. Please check the merch shop for different beautiful items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, but most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!